Hey everybody, welcome to another model building workshop. I'm Mr. Allen coming to you from the Smith Hill Library, part of the Providence Community Library here in Providence, Rhode Island. And today I'm going to do a short video here talking about kits that are good for kids, things that are good for starting out and trying out model building. I know I've talked about some of this in the past, but I thought I'd do a little refresher here. So one set of kits that are out that I think are pretty good are these easy assembly kits from Hobby Boss. So they have a pretty good line of aircraft kits like this one here, the F4u Corsair. This is an American naval plane from World War II and the Korean War. And one thing that's fun about this particular kit for us Rhode Islanders is that the decal options for this one are for the small aircraft carrier, the Block Island, which is part of Rhode Island, for those of you out there who didn't know that, which is probably a lot of you, but anyway. So that makes an added feature for a Rhode Islander here to have that. So these are fun, simple kits, and let me show you what they look like when you open them up. So you get a tray full of parts, and the detail is actually pretty good. So for those of you out there that just want a quick build who are experienced model builders, these can be fun too. And I built some of these just for kicks, and in some cases just because I wanted to experiment with like a new painting scheme or something. And these are kind of fun, inexpensive kits that you can experiment and do some fun things with. So for example, here's your wing assembly. It's already built, so it takes some of the pressure off a kid, because there's not much to do there, because in another model, a more detailed model, the top part of the wing and the bottom part of the wing will be separate. These scoops here would be separate pieces in there. This would be another piece. But here it's all simplified, but the detail is still good. So look at this. So you have the fuselage halves already put together, and the cockpit is already assembled with the seat and the control stick already there. So for a kid, that makes life a lot simpler. It doesn't mean that there's not cleanup you're going to have to do, because you're going to find things like that, a little bit of flash, extra plastic, and so forth that are going to be kicking around. So you may have to do some filing here and there with like an emery board, or if you have an X-Acto knife, if you're going to be working with your kid, you can kind of clean that up for them. The doors are already open on the fuselage for the tail wheel. Propellers are already here. I think the engine is already in and assembled and inside the cowling, because some of that can be a pain to build when you have to put all the engine together and then put the cowling on. And then you get, force this because these things are snug in there. Here's your stabilizers, your fuel tanks. Although you do have to put the top and the bottom of the fuel tanks together, so it gives them a little bit of a knowledge of how assembly would go on a slightly more detailed kit like an Airfix kit or Hasegawa kit or a Tamiya kit that are out there that are a little bit more work, but and then you get the wheel doors here, so it gives them some idea of what's to come in another model. And then you get the rockets if you want to put rockets on. There's a little bit of work to those, putting the tail part of the rockets on. So there's a little bit of detail. So you kind of learn the tricks of the trade, shall we say, while building these kits. But it's a lower parts count, and a lot easier to put together. So they're pretty good starter kits, and we've used them at the library with good success. And they have an option of decals. That's kind of hard to see there, but I'll show you on the instruction sheet. And you can learn how to do the water slide decals, which a lot of kids are intimidated. I like how the word intimidate is an intimidating word to say. Kind of fun, huh? Anyway. So you get the water slide decals. You put those in the warm water, slide them out, put them on the model. And those are the types of things that, like I said, kids have been skeptical about using them, but once you show them how it's done, they're like, oh, that's not bad, and they kind of, some kids will find it fun. Other kids will just want to paint it and call it a day. But, so there's options with these kits, how far you want to go, you know, for detailing. But the instructions are pretty straightforward, really. There's not a lot to it, depending on what you want to do. The only thing I found interesting with this is that the options really are for the wheels down only. Generally, when I work on model airplanes with kids, I tend to put the wheels up in flight mode because it's less pieces. Although they do simplify the landing gear, so there's not a whole lot of fuss and sweat to do with these. And then the decals, well, in some cases the decals can be complicated, but there's almost always one that's more complicated than the other depending on what you want to do. Yeah, this one's probably the easier one to do. This one's got that stripe and everything on the cowling, which could be challenging, but who knows. But usually kids find ways to make these things look fun, and this is a simple overall blue color. If they decide to follow the instructions, because we've had a lot of kids that just build these things, they'll either leave them unpainted, or they'll just paint it whatever color they want. And for me, teaching a class, yes, it's okay. Whatever you want to do, it's your model, have fun with it. You're taking it home, whatever. If you want to paint it pink. Have fun. It's, you know, it's a hobby, right? So there's other ones in the line. So there's the German FW190. So there's quite a bit of variety in this series. There's the 163 Interceptor, the jet fighter from World War II. Actually, the rocket plane, I should say. That was actually a rocket plane. This thing was a crazy aircraft. And we did one of these at the library, and this was actually technically more than one. This was a pretty good kit. There wasn't a lot to this one really, so a lot of fun, a lot of interest because it's a rocket. Kids are like, ooh, how cool is that? A rocket plane. And again, very few parts. A couple of small ones though, just as a heads up. And these nice trays, so I like that. So there's not much to this one, but it's really cool looking. Some decals. They give you the option of a German fighter or one captured by the British with that fun yellow color. So there's that. And some other starter kits too. The Testers line, these old classic kits. These are still around, and this is the Texan training plane. I got a chance to fly on one of these once, which is one of the coolest things I've ever done. Though tough on the stomach. Heads up, if you want to do flips and barrel rolls. Don't eat before you do that. But well, what a ride. So this is again a pretty simple model kit. Few parts. The only challenge we had with this kit was trying to get the cockpit. There's these two little bench pieces you got to put in and sit the soldiers, the pilots in there, and the rear machine gun. But actually, no, this doesn't have a rear machine gun, does it? No, not this one. Sorry, I think I got the wrong plane. I think the Dauntless is the other kit that they do. Anyway, so this says the bench seat and the two people, and the landing gear is very simplified on this, so it's really not complicated. And you do have an option of doing it with the wheels up if you don't want to bother with the wheels at all. We've done a lot of these at the library for starter kits, and we've had good success. And if the kit's really frustrated, you can just leave the pilots out of it if they're struggling with that. So this gives you some options, and again, a pretty simple paint scheme, unless you want to get really brave and do the multicolored one here with the yellow stripes. And then you can see some of the other planes in this series, including that rocket plane is on the Testers set too. And another thing we tend to do a lot of here is building soldiers. And this is a German kit here, and we have the Americans to go with it. These are the Tamiya Kits. These have been around since the 70s. I built these as a kid. And this is a good bargain because they give you, there's 8 soldiers in this box you can work on. Same thing with the Germans. There's 8 of them in there. So you get a whole play set. If your kid's young and wants to play with them, you kind of can if you're careful. I mean, they are brittle. You could break them easily, but you can do quite a bit with them. And again, if they're ambitious, they can put all the gear on them. If they're not, they can make it simpler and not put all of the canteens and whatnot on them. But you have the options, you know. And they have fun diagrams on the side of the box. Explain different rank and whatnot. Although this one's in Japanese, but you kind of get the idea. The box is completely loaded. Every square inch of this box has got some information on it. They don't waste a single millimeter on these boxes. And they turn out looking like, these are ones that kids have built, which they find fun. We got some stands. Those kits don't come with stands, but we did find some that we were able to use from other kits. It's one of the German ones here that was painted. You know, just with a couple of colors. I mean, just 3 colors. Look what a difference that makes. And we have another company here that gives you an idea of what you can do with these kits. And these got all the gear on them, so. And if your kid, you know, likes to paint, likes to play around and try to get creative with them, you could go and do things like this, or you can make little scenes out of them. This is a very simple scene we did. We got some model railroad scenery. We've got plants, I think that came from an aquarium kit for your aquarium. We got a signpost that, you know, a piece of wood and a sign we got off the internet. And to save money, they do make sandbags you can buy, but we just used Sculpey, the clay, and baked that in the oven, and now you got yourself sandbags. That's how we did that. Maybe it's cheaper in the long run to buy the plastic model ones and not go through all that work, but we thought we'd try that as another project, see if you could make stuff out of Sculpey, and we did. Anyhow. And I would end it with this, is that as your kid gets his skills and starts to get the hang of building models, then you can start doing things like this. This is a Tamiya Panzer ii Kit, which I know I've talked about this before on the model building workshop. This is a favorite of mine to work with for a number of reasons. It's great with kids. It's a fun tank. It comes with a set of infantry, which is cool. And it's not that complicated to build. It may look overwhelming when you open the box and you see all those parts. You're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But, you know, it's not that bad if you're patient, and there's not a lot of steps to it. Now here's your hull. Because one of these trees here is just for the infantry and the stands and everything to build them. So one is just almost, it's a separate kit actually that they included with this combo that's got the infantry in it. You get the rubber band style tracks that you can either like heat a screwdriver or something and melt the pins to make the tracks stay together, and you just wrap them around. Or you can use staples or something like that, which I've done both. I'm trying to find, there's a set of different types of instructions here. Here's the ones in English, mostly in Japanese, but you'll see it looks daunting at first, but if you just break it down by each diagram at a time and kind of work your way slowly through it, it's not that bad. And we've been able to do this with a lot of kids. Again, after we tried some of these other kits first, we were able to get up to this. And if you're really into World War II or history, there's a lot you can read to learn about that. It talks about the battles, gives you a painting guide to the soldiers here. Actually, the instructions for building the soldiers is right on the side, how to put them together. And that's a fun little kit right there. They used to give you a nice color illustration for the different painting guides, but they don't now. They just give you this black and white one, different ways to paint this. I think there's one that's in gray, which would require paint to do that. Otherwise, you can leave it in the sand color for the desert, or you can get like a green or brown paint and do a little bit of camouflage, which is very common on these tanks as well. Anyhow, that's a very quick look at some things you could do to get your kids interested in this hobby if you want. It's a fun hobby. Something fun to do, especially when the weather's lousy. Put a kit together. You can build an entire complete set if you want. Anyway, that's today's model building workshop. Hope you enjoyed that, and have fun building, and take care. Okay, we'll see you soon on the next workshop. Bye now.